specs, timecodes. Awesome guys from tradingshenzhen.com who gave me the device to review. Anything else to add here before I'm going to start with the review? I would say no. And that's why I would just say, shall we get started? Yes. Okay, before I'm going to talk about the design and build quality, let me show off the silicone case it comes with, because it actually works quite nice, because it doesn't make the device really any bulkier. It protects the device, it acts some actual grip, and it looks still as nice as it does on its own. And that is great. And it's someone who doesn't like cases at all. But about the design and build quality, I have to say one thing. It feels incredibly premium built. Very high quality, doesn't bend at all, has some nice premium heft to it. And one thing that maybe surprised me the most is how compact it feels for a 5.5 inch. And I had to actually recheck the specs to see if that is right, because it feels so much smaller for some reason. Yes, it has the black border around the display, which so many people don't like at all, which is not a big problem for me. But yeah, I have to say, it works great with those curves here at the back. We have some nice premium looking beveled edges that you can't really see. There's not really a 2.5D glass, but there is a smooth transition over to that. And I have to just say, it feels great. And especially with the clear coating that we have above that metal here, I have to say this actually provides some extra grip. This is very similar to what I've seen on the Huawei P9 Plus, but for some reason I prefer it here a lot more, because it doesn't feel hollow like it did on the P9. This feels very, very solid, and overall just extremely premium in the hand. I also think that the top and bottom chin is quite small, especially since we also have capacitive buttons here that light up and go away. And then, as you will see, it looks so nice and clean. So design really nailed it, and this is one of the nicest looking and feeling devices that I've had so far, definitely. And this for the price, highly impressive. The fingerprint reader doesn't really impress me so much, because it's not as, maybe not the slowest one, but also definitely not the fastest one. But what I don't like so much, you have to really hit it in the middle. If you just maybe sometimes do it like this or like this, just not properly get the middle, which on a lot of phones is no problem, it just doesn't work. In terms of speeds, it's okay, but I've definitely seen a lot better ones already. Here we have the LEDs, the camera. Yes, it sticks out a little bit, but it's not the end of the world. On top we have even an IR blaster, also a microphone. On the left we have a dual SIM slot without an SD card tray, which is something that I don't really understand. We have two speaker cutouts, only here is one speaker, and there is a kind of stereo also like on the arrangement like on the HTC 10. So this one is for the highest, or both were kind of like in a stereo mode, but it's okay. Here we have the USB Type-C, and where is the headphone jack? Oh wait, here it is. Yeah, not impressed by that. Other than that, what do I have to say? The buttons actually quite nicely placed. The power button also and the volume rocker feel quite nice. They don't really click so much, but the tactile feedback is great. We have a notification LED, but it's really, really faint, and you won't really see it in daylight, so don't really bother about that. And if that looks like a face to you, yes, it does to me as well. Now, about the display, I have to say this is a 1080p 5.5 inch IPS display, and I have to say a very good one. I wouldn't quite call it great though, because if we check the settings here real quick, in the color mode we have a LeEco mode. As you can see here, this is kind of more like a traditional standard mode. Vivid adds some punch to it. Natural is even more so natural. And then we have soft, which I personally find to be a little bit too warm though, something you won't really see so much on the video. And I just like Vivid, because it is definitely not as oversaturated like on an AMOLED display, but it just looks nice. I prefer a little bit more saturation on smartphone displays. Other than that, I have to say viewing angles are absolutely stable, no problems here at all. It is a very bright display, and sunlight reliability was quite fine. White point, really, really nice. Didn't really have to bother about it that it's too warm, too cold. Just right in my opinion. Black levels are quite good. Minimal amount of the common IPS glow, and then the colors, I have to say, are really satisfying, because very pleasing. They don't look wrong at any point in time, so they look always right, something that I definitely like to see. And yeah, it's a really nice display. I'm missing a little bit more pop or maybe some punch to it that would maybe impress me a little bit more than some of the AMOLED or maybe the very best IPS display do, but this one is fully satisfying without a doubt. So let's check the speaker here. So, as you maybe have heard, and I'm not quite sure how well it translates over the microphone, but it's not an arrangement like on the HTC 10 where we have the highs on one side and the bass on one side. It's pretty much the same quality on both. I would say the maximum volume is absolutely fine. There are some louder ones out there, but it's definitely more than good enough. And the sound could maybe be a little bit richer, but it's very clean and quite nicely balanced, so it didn't really feel like it's too weak or something like that. So the bass is a little bit there for a smartphone, of course, and the mids are quite, and we have quite clear highs. So overall, a very good one. I would say maybe just quite good, not very, very good, because there I would have just wished for a little bit more body to it. But there's also nothing to complain about that. And yes, I've already said that I'm not a fan of the headphone jack missing, but if you use the adapter, I have to say the headphone jack, or yeah, let's call it headphone jack quality, is actually really impressive. I did not expect it to be that loud, sound that clear, and high quality. So yeah, you don't maybe get the most convenient solution, but one of the very best solutions out there on the market. And after all, this is all I would wish for. So good, no problems. Let's open and kill off the apps, and as you can see, we don't have a kill all apps button, which is something that I would have definitely liked to have seen. In terms of app loading times, they are not crazy fast, because especially the animations are maybe not the shortest ones, but it gets the job done. As you can see here, quite snappy, I would say. Not something really spectacular. I've seen definitely faster devices, but what it definitely is, it is super smooth. Especially the browser, no problems here at all. Absolutely nice, rendering times are fast. And someone asked me if I could just maybe load a heavier page for people to see if that works as well, and no problem, he wanted the Verge. I actually did not want it, but as you can see here, even Verge, especially the mobile page, definitely works out just brilliant. So browsing performance, top notch. As you can see here, I'm using Flamingo, and that one works just as well. There are some minor occasions of some smaller slowdowns. Nothing really big, but definitely noticeable in daily use. So I definitely did not like that so much, especially since it's usually super smooth and those quite common slowdowns are visible. In case you are wondering why I use Flamingo and not Phoenix, I could not install Phoenix. The Play Store just did not allow me to do just that, which is quite unfortunate, because I will get into that in the software part. But as you can see here, all the apps run just buttery smooth, no complaints at all. The performance is absolutely great. Multitasking was also fine, but what I don't like at all, yeah, this is Google Plus, is the way how it is handled, because as you can see here, if I am like here, I can't even jump into my last app just by pressing it once again. You have to go into it and then press the home button, which is very convoluting and weird, and you don't have a recent tabs or tasks kill all button, and this is a weird behavior, especially since you have all the quick settings here, and the only thing the notification shade does is really just show you the notifications, and this is something that you have to get used to along, and I even using this for more than a week did not quite do that. I actually think it's quite handy that you have everything here, but it's not the best solution. And like I said, multitasking on its own works out absolutely fine. So especially if you have the 6GB version, here things are great and nothing to complain about. Gaming performance as well is on a very, very good level. I would just not call it quite great because of the here as well quite common slowdowns. Otherwise we have quite high frame rates. I've noticed that fast-paced games like racing games have a little bit more trouble keeping those higher frame rates intact, and there it just slows down a few times, but it is overall playable at other times. Of course the phone gets warm, but nothing that really bothered me. I didn't really get concerned about that, and the overall performance stayed intact all the time. If it maybe throttles at some point, then it's so marginal that I didn't really notice it, and I don't run benchmarks to try just that. And if we just, for example, then try games like Modern Combat, which are a little bit slow paced, works out absolutely brilliant, really satisfying, smooth. Reacting times were great. I had no problems with my Bluetooth controller like I have on a lot of other devices. So the great gaming performance is just not quite there because of the slowdowns. But if you use more like normal paced games, absolutely no problem, and then you could call it great. Okay, now the next thing would be the battery life, and if you check that, 2 hours and 10 is still quite okay for a charge time. It started a little bit slow and it ended a little bit slow, which is a little bit odd. Maybe it was due to using my Quick Charge 3.0 charger. Maybe I should have used the one in the box, but I did not, just to keep it the same in all other reviews. But one thing that is super impressive, 60 minutes of YouTube with a brightness of 45%, which was actually quite bright. Usually I try to always get the same brightness for all the devices, and 10% is one of the best values here. Of course, thanks to the big battery, but I've had even devices with same battery capacity that did not get quite a good result. So overall, charging times are absolutely fine in my opinion, and the battery life is Great plus. I would like to call it great plus because it's definitely better than great. Because I would say on a day in my normal use, mixed use, I would get about 7 hours of screen on time. Maybe I got like 6.5 over the course of 2 days, which is great plus. Not insane like I've seen on the Moto Z Play, but definitely better than some of the more already better phones, like for example that get like 6 hours. So great plus for sure, because it is noticeably still better than a lot of the great battery life phones. And that is all I have to say. Standby rate is particularly very impressive, I guess, due to the big battery. So kudos, they did a great job here. Where they did not make a great job though is the software, and here I have to nag quite a lot. Of course, this is Nova Launcher. I could maybe try to quickly switch to the stock one if it is available. No, I just won't, but it's not necessary because as you have already seen, here we have the quick settings, or kind of like some shortcuts. Here we have the quick settings. You can rearrange those. Also for music is here available, and here we have the recent apps. So this is something you definitely have to get used to. Other than that, the settings here look quite stockish still. Maybe not in terms of design, but definitely in terms of just behavior. We have a theming engine, didn't really try, didn't really bother to. What I like to see is scale view, because as you can see here, you have a standard view that is a little bit smaller, and then you have a zoomed mode similar to what we will get in Nougat, but it's already here available. We have also video display enhancement. Font size is where I'm disappointed because we don't have a smaller option, and I usually always take the smallest font size and I can just go bigger. That is just something I can't really understand. Also, personalize, of course, we have the typical things like the system settings, or I mean themes and system wallpapers and so on. Not really much to show here. But there are a lot of problems here with this device, because I had, of course, since it's not coming out of the box with the Play Store, you have to reinstall it, and then I had just some issues. I could not install, for example, Asphalt Extreme. I could not get Phoenix installed. I had quite some trouble installing G4 or G+. And if we go into the settings, you will already see here that I have what was at my point the latest version here, and it was called 18S. I'm not quite sure where it actually stands. Just don't find it at the moment, but it is 18S. It came with 17S. And that is just what, especially one thing is also weird, because here there is a kind of bug, because you can see I've changed the animation scale to 0.5 on all 3 settings. And at least once a day it reverts back to 1.0, which is something I personally don't like so much. So I have to say the software itself is quite buggy. It's almost kind of a mess and definitely needs a lot of improvement here. The fact that it's not quite stockish or something like that, I could get over the fact if it would be stable and it would be bug-free, which it just isn't at the moment. Of course, if we maybe get custom ROMs or some maybe optimizations here from LeEco side, but it is to be seen if they will actually provide a good software support, because what I see here from a final release actually bothers me a bit, because the software experience did actually bother me, especially since the hardware experience is absolutely top-notch. That's all I can say about the updates. Who knows? Okay, let's check the camera here, and selfies itself looks still quite okay. Not really anything to complain, as you can see here, quite sharp, quite detailed, and the colors look nice. So this is actually quite good. Of course, as you can already see here, not always that sharp. So you really need great conditions, which I didn't have this week because it was raining all the time. But I would say the selfies are definitely quite good to maybe very good. Nothing to majorly complain here, especially since the outcome is most okay. As you can see here, indoors already it gets not always that great. Yes, sometimes, as you can see here, this is actually a top shot, but it just doesn't turn out all the time like this. And if you go here, for example, low light situations with the flash, looks actually quite good. Without the flash, very dark, but the good thing is not actually grainy so much. And yeah, the shutter times did actually go down, so it struggled a little bit in lower light, especially in terms of shutter speed and autofocus. But as you can see, if you have a really steady hand, you can get great shots, but not always, as you can see here. So if you just slightly move your hand, you get a blurry shot. But if not, I have to say the shots are actually really, really good indoors. Of course, not always. It really depends on how much luck you get. Because on the viewfinder, especially photos like this one, and especially this and this one, looked really, really good, and I was quite disappointed to see what I got in real life on my monitor to see. So the pictures can be good, but so many times I had quite a bad picture, especially it looked good on the viewfinder, and I don't really like to judge so much the quality of the pictures than the actual experience. And I have to say the experience itself would have been good until you see the pictures on your monitor, because I see a lot of blurry shots. Exposure itself is okay, not really anything to complain, but a lot of just not things properly in focus, even though the autofocus seems to work quite reliable. Very, very slow though, I have to say that. It takes quite some time until it focuses, but then it looked right to me. But in reality, as you can see here, not always that much. And especially here, I would have wished for more details. Everything looks a little bit like a mess, especially here. I have to say I'm quite disappointed with this. Looked perfectly fine on the viewfinder, and I can't stress this enough because from the viewfinder I would have expected this to be a really good camera, but in reality I would say it's maybe just okay, if even that, because I've seen devices at around $200, maybe $250 that did produce better shots, or at least gave me a better experience. If you check videos, this is 4K. Yes, we see some artifacting going on faster movement, but the exposure is maybe not super smooth, but it's not also super obvious. But one thing that I was personally quite disappointed by is the fact that we don't have any autofocus, as you can see here. So I've waited, I've tried a few times, but no, you have to tap to focus, then the focus works absolutely fine. So if you want maybe autofocus, you will have to rely on a third-party app, like for example Open Camera, but it is what it is, quite disappointing. And if you scroll a little bit further, you can see that sometimes, especially here, I did not even get it to autofocus some smaller objects like this one. So it just did not just get it right. The overall quality is also not super sharp, especially from 4K. I expected just more. It's, I would say, an okay camera for videos, and for pictures pretty much the same. So not quite sure what else to say. So I would say let's just switch back. Like I said, the camera is not quite on the same level as the rest of the hardware. This is kind of the biggest drawback. Not important for me, but for a lot of other people, I know it is very important. So let's get into the pros and cons, not to make this too long. Pros: premium build, amazing. Comfortable and great design, absolutely. Very good display, not quite great, maybe just not impressive enough, but absolutely pleasing and satisfying, absolutely. Scale view settings, I've talked about it, I like to see that. Quite good speaker. I would call it very good if it would have been a little bit richer and maybe a little bit louder, but also absolutely pleasing, absolutely satisfying at all times. Great headphone sound, maybe even better than great, really, really good. Very good performance, not quite great as well due to the slight or quite common slowdowns. Usually those super smooth, but those few little instances of slowdowns did bother me a little bit, but not enough to be a deal breaker or anything like that. And great press breadth line. Now let's talk about the negative sides, and maybe not everything is important. Not the best fingerprint reader. It works okay, but it's not quite on the same level as on so many other phones these days. No small font size, I've talked about that. No headphone jack, but with the adapter at least a very good one. Not quite Snapdragon 821 worthy performance. I think there is just some smaller optimizations needed to get this on this level, because the hardware is definitely there. Software very unpolished, and that is one of my biggest gripes, especially Play Store issues. I could not install a lot of apps. Animation scale bug, it resets it, not a huge issue, but still after a while I think it would get annoying, but these are things that they can fix. And then the disappointing camera. This could be maybe kind of a deal breaker for a lot of people. So in the end, what is there to say? You have to consider the price here, because if you import it or something like that, the price should be at around maybe $350, $380. I'm not quite 100% sure, but especially if you buy it on some stores, they have these fire sales directly from LeEco, and there you can, I have seen already getting them for $300, and the lowest price that I've seen is $280. I'm not quite sure if that is already the price with or without the taxes, but if we are talking about the $300 phone, the hardware is absolutely impressive, mind-blowing, and really top-notch. You won't get the better hardware for $300. If we are talking already about $400 hardware, I would say, then I would prefer phones like the Action 7 or maybe even a Moto Z Play, because of the insane battery life and still overall great qualities. So it really comes down to for what price you get it, because you have seen the pros and cons. So I would say mostly the actually biggest issue for me is the software. If that can be fixed, or maybe via custom ROMs can be done, or even improved, if you can get something stockish that works reliable, then you get magnificent software with magnificent hardware, and that for a price that is unbeatable. But you also just have to keep in mind, if you are already getting close to 400, they are maybe better, or let's say more polished options on the market, especially with a better camera. This upset me quite a lot. Not personally because I don't care about the camera, but I know a lot of people are very heavy into photography, and this is definitely not the best solution. I think people with better weather will get better results than I did with quite rainy weather. But I've seen so many personal pictures that I've taken with that I can't show that it just didn't quite satisfy me enough. And that is all I have to say to keep it at about 20 minutes. I hope you liked it. Give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel, leave me any comments and questions down below. Maybe check the links from Trading Shenzhen because those awesome guys were so nice to lend me this device to review. And I definitely enjoyed my time, but I would have enjoyed it even more so with better software. That's all I have to say. Have a nice weekend. Until next time, bye. Yes.